Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. Are we deep into the planet's 6th mass extinction? Evidence from our oceans would suggest so. The inimitable VW bug is no more. Unesco lists its best sites. We'll tell you which ones made the cut. And we introduce you to a new airline specializing in a particular kind of farmyard cargo. And at the top of our news feeds, the climate crisis. A scientist in the United States has issued a terrifying warning about the future of the planet. He says we're on the verge of extinction due to the amount of carbon we're pumping into the air and the effect that has on life here on Earth. Here's Liz.
The Earth has been through 5 mass extinction catastrophes, and scientists suspect we're currently in the 6th. Mass extinctions happen when a large number of species are wiped out. The last one, around 66 million years ago, destroyed more than half the plants and animals on Earth. And a finding by Professor Daniel H. Rothman from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology suggests the next one is fast approaching. He's been analysing carbon levels in the oceans, and what he's found is mind-blowing for scientists.
If the carbon cycle is nearing a neutral positive feedback point, well, completely terrifying.
Professor Rothman says carbon levels in the ocean have reached a point of no return. Humans have pumped so much into the environment, chemistry is about to take over, and the result is unavoidable and disastrous. We're approaching what experts describe as a cascade of chemical feedback. The carbon increases the pH level in the water, causing ocean acidification. And when the oceans become too acidic, all life in them dies. Similar ocean acidification contributed to the Permian-Triassic mass extinction 250 million years ago, when life as we know it nearly came to an end. Mitigating this disaster may be impossible.
Once we're over the threshold, how we got there may not matter. Once you get over it, you're dealing with how the Earth works and how it goes on its own ride.
And it's a ride we are now all on. Getting off is not an option.
So what are we going to do? Well, I spoke to Professor Tim Lenton from the University of Exeter in the UK. His expertise is in climate change. I began by putting to him that haven't we already known that this catastrophe was coming for a long time?
And going to university in the early 1990s, and we knew then that climate change and global warming was starting to happen and it was a problem. And things like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change were founded in the early 1990s, and the basic message might have been refined, but it hasn't changed since then. And yet we've let the kind of global emissions of greenhouse gases at least double, I think, since I was aware of this problem earlier in my life. So yeah, we've collectively paused for a long time and given ourselves a much bigger challenge now to turn things around. I hope we'd all like a more equitable future, as well as one without kind of climate chaos unfolding. What we've seen in the time since I was, first become aware of climate change is certainly China's emissions have shot up as they've developed, and there's obviously a sensitivity here. It's not right to sit in a long industrialized nation like I am in the UK and preach to everybody else, oh, they mustn't do this. But the key point now is that there's an opportunity to sidestep all the dirty technology of fossil fuel burning, because the cost of new renewable energy is competitive with making a new power station based on fossil fuels. So, and we're seeing a big uptake of electric vehicles, at least in the rich world. So the technology situation is different now anyway, and really countries that haven't had a chance to develop along the path that some of us have a different opportunity to develop along a path powered by renewable energy that's going to be a much more sustainable and flourishing one. We want to avoid turning the carbon cycle, as we call it, from being our friend, which takes up at least half of our emissions every year, into being our enemy. And we've still got time to avoid that tipping point if it exists. But it means, it means decisive action now. And there are a few other tipping points in the climate where they're necessarily uncertain, but we haven't hit them yet. So there's a lot to play for to try and restrict the extent of global warming to try to avoid those tipping points. If we just tell the rest of the world that the apocalypse is coming, it's not necessarily going to motivate action. We need to partner that message with, if we're going to avoid the worst, we need to tip some positive, transformative change in societies. And we have the technology and hopefully the will, and hopefully some of the political structures to do that. So I think the crucial messaging thing is balancing a message of jeopardy, which could lead to kind of despair in the audience, with a message of hope that there is a way we can transform. But kind of transformative change is the only option now, because we left it too late for incremental change.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Jaden Smith has opened a vegan pop-up. It's as hipster as you can imagine, but it's for a good cause. He's feeding homeless people in LA for free. The truck is called the I Love You restaurant, and he says this is just the beginning of his vegan-based feeding of the indigent. Well, this was on the Gold Coast in Australia. Some people are excited to reveal what sex their baby is. This has become an increasingly obnoxious, ostentatious trend of late. And this one went wrong. Their car was spinning its wheels to reveal blue smoke, which I guess means the people are expecting a boy. But then, oh no, fire! The car is engulfed in flames.
Godfrey, our chairman, is here with Spain. If you'd like to, we'll give you the option of doing it yourself, or he will. No, I prefer it. Excellent, thank you.
And this is our editor Louie's story of the day. Her Majesty planting a tree. It's like she's been planting trees all her life, which is why we like it so much. And here are some more videos of Her Majesty proving that she has form when it comes to planting trees. Now, one of the world's coolest and most history-filled cars is no more. After a, let's say, unfortunate start as the car of Nazi Germany in the 30s, it went on to be a symbol of the peace and love and flower power of the 60s. Quite a transformation. Here's Jacob.
It's the end of the road for a car that has meant many things to many people. First among them, Adolf Hitler and the people of Nazi Germany. And then the world fell in love with Herbie the Love Bug. Ferdinand Porsche designed the original VW Beetle so that ordinary people could afford it. And from 1938, it was a hit. Everyone from Pope John Paul II to actor Chris Pratt owns one.
There's something about being in this little car that's really one of my favourite places in the world, it is. I think it's got a lot to do with not growing up. Somewhere in me is still that 16-year-old boy who got his first car and never kind of got over it.
In nearly 82 years, more than 25 million VW Bugs have been sold. The Beetle evolved with new designs in 1998 and 2012, but people also made it their own.
Well, nothing makes you smile like this thing. That's what I mean. The home-built stuff is always the most fun. Stuff you build yourself. This is a lot of fun. Mario, good job, my friend. Thank you very much, and
thank you for having me.
Congratulations on the new baby. And yeah, I put the car seat in the back, and there you go.
Actually, the car seat goes up front.
Oh, car seat goes up front.
A three-point harness up front. I haven't modded the back yet to put harnesses back there.
There you go. There you go. But anyway, as I said, you know, you can do stuff on a budget and cool stuff on a budget. Like I say, when I went to the car show, people were ignoring the Ferraris and the Porsches, and they were gathered around this thing. So, very cool. Mario, once again, thank you, my friend. Great.
So the fun little car that's been a movie star, a hippie car, and even a racer will buzz off.
Okay, let's spin around the world for some other stories you need to know this Wednesday. Donald Trump has been told by a court in New York he can't block people on Twitter whom he disagrees with because that is a violation of their First Amendment rights. The First Amendment allows for freedom of speech, and Trump routinely blocks people who say things that he doesn't like. But because Trump has chosen to conduct so much of his business on Twitter, judges say he's created a digital town hall where people's views must be heard. Russian spies are being looked at in the leak of cables written by the former UK ambassador to the US. The cables by Sir Kim Darroch called Donald Trump's administration clumsy and inept and said the man himself was radiating insecurity. Britain's launched an investigation into how they ended up in the hands of a journalist and got published in a newspaper. Paris has become the latest big city to declare a climate emergency. The City of Lights has been scorched by really high temperatures in the past few weeks. It says it will begin to implement guidance from the 2016 Paris Climate Accord and also create a climate academy to better educate people in the ways they're destroying the planet. And the actor Rip Torn is dead. He was 88. Now, he may be known to you from his later pictures like Dodgeball. He was in the Larry Sanders Show too, but he will always be remembered by me and many others for one of the first viral must-see videos that we saw online, and it was this. When filming a movie called Maidstone with Norma Mailer in the late 60s, Rip Torn hit Mailer with a hammer as he was really getting into the scene. It ended in a mad brawl with Mailer biting Torn's ear. It's crazy and brilliant, and by all accounts was typical of Mr. Torn at the time. He was later accused of pulling a knife on the actor Dennis Hopper. Rip Torn said he couldn't have pulled a knife on Mr. Hopper because he was trying to kill Norma Mailer at the time. Now, every year, Unesco considers landmarks from around the world to single out for their outstanding universal value to humanity. Here's a look at the ones that made the cut this time. Okay, and last up, the latest in our series of farmyard animals being airlifted. A few weeks ago, or months ago, we brought you a cow attached to a helicopter. Now we have some goats. Well, this happened in Washington State in the northwest United States. The goats have been moved to their natural habitat in the Cascade Mountains. So far, 17 of the animals have been captured, drugged, and moved like this, and they just have about 100 to go. They're having to be moved because they were becoming a nuisance in their current location in the Olympic National Park. They were introduced there in the 1920s, but have been harassing hikers. One was killed by a goat in 2010. So this is a humanitarian initiative too. And that will do you from the Newsfeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints, and suggestions. You'll find me at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and follow me on Twitter. Follow, subscribe, and add. See you again tomorrow.